Hi, I'm Toussaint Morrison. I'm here interviewing LaTrisha Vetaw, Vice President of the Minneapolis Park Board and at-large elected official. Commissioner. Okay. I get the terminology mixed up here and there.
I get it.
What is it that your job requires and allows you to do as a Vice President of the Minneapolis Park Board?
Good question. So Minneapolis is unique in that it has an elected park board. We're the only city in the United States that has an elected park board. And so the entire organization, which has about $120 million budget, is governed by the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board.
Mm-hmm.
We also have a superintendent who does more management of staff and day-to-day activities for parks. We really focus on policy level decisions more than anything.
Yeah.
I would say like commissioners have, like some commissioners are really into recreation, youth recreation. I personally, my regular job, I've had a background in working with youth for years. So I came to the park board as a child who used the parks regularly from a single mom. So my vision for parks were introducing people of color to parks the way that I was as a child.
Okay.
So you may have like pet projects as a commissioner. You may want to see, like for me, ultimately, I want to see like a Commissioner Vetaw camping day in the park with girls.
Okay.
Like that's something you work towards. But then you may have something that just came out of nowhere. After the unrest and after the murder of George Floyd, parks became a space where people were living. 2 years ago, I never ever thought as a parks commissioner I would even be having a conversation about housing.
Yeah.
Because it just wasn't synonymous with parks, right? Like
Yeah.
you never think parks, housing, but
Yeah.
it's come up and now we're dealing with it.
Exactly. And you're also in charge of, as we were speaking earlier, and correct me because again my terminology is really rusty on this. You are in charge of the park police, or
Yes.
or what is your
So Minneapolis Parks Board has an independent park police force. We have our own chief, and we have, I want to say, 33 sworn officers. I don't know if that's the correct number. They're going to be so sad at me if I don't get the number right. But
33,
we have,
it's 34.
right, it's 35. No, but we have our own police force. We have our own police chief. And so I serve as the chair of the Park Police Oversight Committee.
Okay.
So as commissioners, we have departments. We have recreation, we have operations and environment, we have admin and finance, we have park police oversight, we have planning, which is like, playground space and stuff like that. And so the president at the beginning of every year assigns commissioners roles, rather that be the chair, the vice chair, or you serve on those committees.
Okay. And the only thing I know about an oversight committee is that City Council enacted a civilian oversight review where you could send in complaints about like the Minneapolis Police Department. Is that the same thing as what you do as like oversight? Do you take in like complaints or like people that have something to say about park police, or how does that work?
I mean, I don't take it in. Most of those things go through our customer service, but those are things that are shared with me with staff.
Got it.
So in addition to the Park Police Oversight Committee, which is more staff-based, it's me working closely with the chief and the superintendent. There's a community advisory committee that's associated with the park police as well.
Okay.
So in addition to the oversight committee, there's a community advisory committee that meets. They have not met due to COVID, but they meet, and then the goal for that committee was for them to say, like, here's 3 to 5 things we really think the park police should work on. And then me as the oversight chair would come back to the board and say, hey, we work together. This is what has come up. How do we fix this?
So could you say it's almost like a liaison between the people and the board?
Yeah, at times. Times.
And the superintendent, it's important to point out, because we'll get to this in a little bit, is Al Bangura.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. And what are Al Bangura's powers and abilities in the entirety of the board?
So Al reports to the board.
Got it.
Al is in charge of the organization to day-to-day operations, but almost everything, even the amount of money that Al can spend, $100,000 is his limit of decision making. Anything above that has to go to the board.
Got it.
And so in the situation that we're talking about with Al, I brought a resolution forward to give our decision-making powers around encampments because of COVID and because how things are quickly changing. Every day things are changing, and we only meet every 2 weeks. And so if something happened between now and our next meeting, we would either have to call a special meeting, and there are special requirements for us to have a special meeting. Or Al could just make the decision as the superintendent and have a discussion with us. But ultimately, the commissioners have the decision-making powers.
So I want to go back to something you said earlier. You said you want to introduce people to parks the way that you were introduced to parks. How were you introduced to parks? Like, what role did parks play in your life as a youth, like growing up?
So parks were like the biggest thing ever in my life. I grew up with a single mom. I have an older sister and a younger brother. And every Saturday morning, my mom would load us up and take us to a different park and just like set us free. There was no like, you want to kayak, if you want to swim, whatever you want to do, you do it. At the time, we just thought that was the best thing that ever happened in our life. But we didn't understand she needed a break. You know, she could just my mother did nothing outdoors. She's not active outdoors. She's not a hiker. She's not a kayak. She doesn't even swim. She doesn't even put her feet in the water. But she would just like, this is the best. She always says, how did you like make that story sound so good? So she had this Tupperware party so she could win a cooler set. And so the cooler set was like what we packed up every Saturday. You know, we had a little grill. And she just took us to a park. She didn't even know parks had names. It was just, that park is on, you know, that street, we're going. We would just get in the car, we would drive, she'd see a park, we'd get out, and she would just unleash us. And I grew up with that. Like, I did that in Chicago. When I moved to Minneapolis, we still did it. It was just a really big part of my life. And a lot of the things I learned as a kid, you know, was at the parks. Like, I mean, simple things just like crochet or, you know, things that would have never happened in my house. There were all these park activities everywhere. You know, like, I mean, the first park I ever went to was North Commons Park. And I thought that was the best.
Dude.
I mean, that hill over there felt like you were in Colorado. You know, like I lived on 18th and a half, and we walked out, and there was North Commons. And I was like, oh, we are rich. We have moved on all the way up. Look at this park, you know? And then, so between my house, my aunt lived on James, and I would walk to her house. North Commons was always packed. Like, you had to, like, wait around. So there's Woodworth Park, which is still my favorite park to this day. It was so quiet. It's a little small neighborhood park. In the school, like, school is on the park. So nobody was ever really there. So you can always go to Woodworth, get a swing, you know, just chill out, just hang out. So I'm almost certain I've been to every single park in Minneapolis. When I work at North Point here in North Minneapolis, I've worked there for 15 years. I'm the director of policy and advocacy. And I work with kids. I teach kids policy systems and environmental change. And so a lot of my work is around tobacco control, transportation as related to biking and walking. I used to run this cool orange bike program for Nice Ride, and then some food safety stuff. And I realized, like, a lot of the kids didn't know parks like I did, and I thought, like, if I get on the park board, I can be that link to them understanding, like, how much parks play a role in your life if you actually use them. I mean, not just for child's play. Parks are jobs, you know? A lot of the people that work at the park board now as full-time employees grew up as kids in the park, started with, like, a little, you know, Teamworks cleanup job, and then went on to be, like, lead or something, and then now they're a park director. Now Al Bangora, he has a long history of working in Minneapolis Parks. He left and came back to serve as the superintendent.
My homie who used to work over at Wyndham Park in Northeast said, he was like, I think I play basketball with Al.
Absolutely. So I think a lot of kids of color have, like, the disconnect is that they don't understand that you don't have to be a rapper, or, you know, there's really good jobs in our parks. Like, a lot of people make really good money, and they just come and check a tree, you know, a forester. Like, so my belief is that we need to connect kids with outdoors, open their eyes to, like, what can happen if you just walk in the park, but also make them understand that you don't have to live below the poverty line, because there are a lot of jobs out here that you don't even know about that exist in your city that you can do.
Was there anybody, like, that opened that door to you? The cliche line, you see you can believe it. Like, was there anybody that showed you that, hey, LaTrisha, you can actually take this role. You can get this job. You can fulfill this position and call shots, like in the park board.
I found out about the park board at Northeast Junior High when I was in 7th grade.
Wow.
We did a project on parks, and I found out another funny story. I found out that there was a such thing as a park board, and I told my mom I'm going to be on the park board, and she was like, "Get your ass in there and do your homework." I mean, that's exactly what she said. She was like, "What?" And I mean, you don't know me, but I ran a 10-week campaign. I wasn't even running for park board. Everybody who ran with me had been running for a year and a half. I was just upset that all this work was being done to flip the board, and it was just a bunch of white men running.
Yeah.
There was one woman who was running when my campaign was 10 weeks, and I ended up, and I ran citywide. So there's district commissioners and citywide commissioners.
Yeah.
But I won because I've done a lot of stuff, you know, like there was a lot of name recognition for me.
Yeah.
Like people could Google me and see like I've done things, that I have a history, that, you know, lots of young people were like, yes, she is the one, you know, LaTrisha, like she's it. So I wasn't like, it was something that I just got angry about because there was so much energy. I mean, some of the most amazing organizers have put work into flipping the board, you know, like going and ousting the park board for the decisions they were making that weren't including people of color. And then I go look to see who's running, and it's like 15 white men.
Yeah, let's go oust them with another white man.
Yeah, like how, just because they're younger and blonder, that's gonna make it better? Like, what the hell? You know, I didn't understand like how we were gonna be making change when I ran for at large. When I went to go and file, I went and filed like 10 weeks before. Londell was the only, I think there was 17 of us.
Yeah.
Londell was the only person of color who was running for at large at that time.
Are you the first black woman to be elected to the park board?
No. There's been 2 more before me.
Okay.
So Mary Merrill Anderson, who the building is named after, she not only was the first black superintendent, but she also served as a commissioner.
Okay.
And then we recently acknowledged Rochelle Berry Gray, who is a black woman as well.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I'll have to brush up on my history of.
And there's a woman before me who kind of was my mentor. Not kind of. She was my mentor. Mary has mentored me too. But Annie Young served for a long time, but she did not identify as black. Mm-hmm. But she like visibly looked like a woman of color, but that's not how she identified as a woman of color.
Okay.
Her name is Annie Young. She passed away a couple years ago, but she served 28 years on the park board.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just passed by the Annie Young Park.
Annie Young Meadow.
Yeah, Annie Young Meadow.
We dedicated that to her after she passed away. She was a really good friend of mine. I had a whole ceremony, everything over there.
I'd seen that meadow for so long when I crossed over the bridge when I was at the U of M. I never knew that it was. How long has that been an actual established park?
It's happened over the last couple of years. It was Annie Young Meadow 2 years ago. Uh-huh. But like they've just made some transformations over the last year and a half. It used to just be the funny thing is like Annie, the reason why we chose that spot is because that's where her and her friends used to hang out and smoke weed at.
Oh, and that's so cool.
I knew that she wanted that to be like Annie Young Meadow. It wasn't I just like picked some random park. Like after park board meetings.
That's so dope.
Or after, she was a true green. I'm a green. I ran as a green.
Yeah.
Annie was a green. Yeah. And Annie was like really into environment and that was like her chill spot with her and her friends.
To get back to one thing you said there were a lot of white people making decisions that didn't involve people of color, and you said folks were trying to oust them. Can you tell me like 1 or 2 decisions that were being made that didn't include people of color in like, decisions about parks?
So I just think the entire park board wasn't including people of color.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like at that time, everybody was white except visibly Annie, but Annie identified as white, right? When it got on the community's radar, there's a video of Nakima actually like challenging one of the former commissioners about like what's going on in these parks, you know? The park board just kind of got on everybody's radar when folks were thinking like, what's actually going on in our city? Who's making decisions in our city?
Yeah.
And the history of the park board has it always been like wealthy, older white people.
Yeah, and it's the same thing that's kind of happened with city council
as
well. You know, where a lot of people are paying attention. To like relate with you in a small way, I was raised in Longfellow neighborhood, and then I'd go to Riverside Plaza during the day for daycare with Children's Home Society and Family Services. And the daycare center didn't have a lot of money. So they'd be like, field trip, we're going to that park.
You go to a park, right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And so it was like the cheapest thing in the world.
But
it
it felt amazing.
Oh my God. I forget the name of the park that's right outside. It's on Cedar. It's between the pawn shop, it's not burnt down, but in Cedar, and there's that like large church right outside of it. Huge soccer field. But we would go there like once a year,
Riverside
and it was I think it's Riverside Park.
Upper
Riverside Park. We would go there once a year, and it would be like this big kickball tournament, and it'd be like the Riverside kickball tournament. It was just like it was just an event. It was very big for us. And then Curry Park was like the daily.
Yeah, but just think about like you're an adult male now, right? And you're reflected, and you're like, oh, I can see it in your face how good it felt to connect to that memory. Yeah. And for me, someone who grew up in parks, still use parks, lives on a park. Yeah. I loved everything about it. My husband was not as connected to parks as I was. His thing with going to the park was like him and his friends would just ride their bikes, past the park, not necessarily the activities that I had. Like I learned so many cross country skiing, all these things in a park at the time that were, my brother and sister and I got teased for being white. It was like you're trying to be white because you do. I'm like, why they get to have all the damn fun? Like, what? No. I want to have fun, too.
Why do white folks get to have all the fun? We want to have some, too.
We want to ski, too,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like, but it's things like that I feel like I want young people who, I've worked in North Minneapolis for almost 20 years, and, like, the kids I come in contact with are kids who would like me, you know? And it's like, if you just give them something, like, something to just take their mind off of something for a while. That can happen in a park. That can happen in a grocery store. You don't know where. Yeah. So my goal is like just give them options. Just like connect them to a resource that's there for them.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that did that for everybody around Riverside as well. Like when I think, especially Longfellow too, and people got to ice skate. Like they got to lace up. Like that was a huge thing. It's like you ain't got nothing to do in winter. But you got an ice skating rink 2 blocks away from you. Now you got the whole world in front of you.
I know how to ice skate.
I know how to ice skate because of parks. Yes, exactly.
I know how to do a lot of things because of parks.
Exactly.
Yes, absolutely.
So to get back to what we were talking about in the beginning, you never thought that being in this position you would have to be addressing an unhoused community or encampments. And as we've seen over the past 2 years, first we had the wall at 55, and that just ballooned up. And that was of the ilk. I was thinking, wow, is everybody just meeting there? Or are there more unhoused folks, being created every day? Which I don't necessarily have, an answer for, but I knew that the wall was growing, and, city council was like, hey, we're going to find them some housing. And then they were like, actually, Red Lake has it. And so a lot of folks went to Red Lake, this reservation where a lot of folks stayed there for winter. What has been your feeling like, your personal feeling like once this all started? Were you like, okay, oh my goodness, how do we solve this? Or were you like, whoa, this isn't my problem? Or what was the initial feeling you had? My initial feeling was like, whoa, this is happening. Like this is real. It's in your face. You can't. No. I've dealt with a lot of trauma things in my life, but it's never been homelessness. It's never been, I didn't have a roof over my head. No matter how bad my situation was, I always had a place to live. So my initial reaction was like, it's real. Like they're there, right? So I start just going out every day, like taking stuff to different parks, talking to people, and then I guess my next reaction was like, how do we help them? Like, how do we help who wants to be helped? Because I think there's also this misconception that people want us to come and I find that to be always the issue. As somebody who's worked on policy change, is that there's always a group of people who come in and say, this is how you need help, and this is how I'm gonna give it to you, right? So when it first happened, I'll tell you the first thing that happened that was like, whoa, this is a big deal, there was this big fight about if we should open up the restroom at Powderhorn or not, right? And so for me, I was like, I don't think it's a good idea to open up the restroom. So I go over to Powderhorn. My husband and I go over there. We're walking around. We're talking to people. And some of the people said,
don't open it up. Like, now, mind you, this is commissioner saying we need to open it up, and this is kind of more of like the white saviors that's at the volunteer tent saying they need a bathroom, they need running water.
Yeah.
So when I go talk to the people who are actually living there in the tents, this is when it was still 15 people on the way. It hadn't grown to be Powder.
Yeah.
They were like, don't open them. If you open them, there's really no way for us to be accountable for each other. With the BIFs, we can see what you're doing. If you overdose, you can fall out. Another guy, five or six different men that day said to me, don't open up the bathrooms because we don't do background checks on people who are here.
Wow.
There could be sex offenders, we don't know. The kids just see food at the table that live in the neighborhood and they're walking up asking for treats. I have no way to like control what can happen to one of these children in the bathroom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, these are the things I'm hearing, yet people are still saying, open them up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that shit don't freak out. Like, that just scared me.
Yeah.
I don't want to be responsible for that, you know?
Yeah.
So, like I said, the messaging was always very different coming from the actual people who live there. And I'm not like one of those people. I never really go talk to organizers unless they're a person of color.
Okay.
Because I feel like it's a different perspective. A person of color typically is always talking to the person in the situation. And I find that a lot of white people just like, they come in to save the situation and they come up with the idea on how to save it, and then that's the messaging that they put out there.
Yeah.
This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna open the bathroom, now everybody will be clean.
My solution is your solution.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So right away I realized that the residents had a very different narrative than the organizers.
That's definitely how I got into it as well. I went to Powderhorn. I saw the tent, and I saw some of the people yelling at the tent, and I was like, I'm gonna go talk to these people. And it wasn't like, look at me on my high horse. It was just, I dropped off stuff to the tent. I know what it is. They know who I am. I get it. However, there seemed to be like a rift between the community, the unhoused community, and the tent.
And the organizers, yeah.
Yeah, and so I went right to the unhoused community, and that's where I met my guy who just kind of became my liaison. I hit him up, phoned him up, like, hey, what do y'all need? We need this, that, and the third. And then the storm came through about 3 weeks ago.
Yes, I was out the next morning.
Woo! He sent me a text that night. He was like, everything's gone. And I'm like, what you mean? Like, in my like naive, ignorant fashion, I'm sitting there like in a restaurant, like patio, like, you know, watching this rain come down. I'm like, what you mean everything's gone? He's like, everything's gone. We need to run a 1-day supply bank tomorrow. Let's get it going.
Powderhorn, or was this Beasley?
I don't know which camp he was at, but this is post Powderhorn sweep.
Sweep. Okay.
So
both sides.
Yeah. So then at that point, that's when I was like, okay. So beginning to work with that person who is unhoused. It was like, all right, direct need, direct action.
Yeah.
And so I'm not gonna sit there and like, you know, be like, now hold on a second, let me tell you what you need.
But that's what you see happening over there.
Exactly.
On a regular basis.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you see happening. When I was over at Powderhorn doing the cleanup, I had no one that was living there say, I don't want to leave. Let me stay. This is my home.
Yeah.
It was all the organizers that was screaming, don't take their stuff. There's this crazy narrative that like park police are just bulldozing everything. That's not the case. They walk up, they say, Toussaint, is this your stuff? Yes, I want to take it. Some police officers help. Then Toussaint says, that's been here for 2 weeks. Nobody's here. The optics look like they're just like bulldozing, but somebody has said, I don't know who that belongs to. I haven't seen anyone here. Some people just said, I don't want that. I'm leaving as is. You know, people just say, I got this stuff since I came to this park. Mm-hmm. It's not my belongings. Like, I don't want it. I'm just using it because I'm here. But then there's like this narrative that like they're all their earthly possessions. They have no connection to this. Someone gave you a tent when you came, you know, like when you came over here. Someone's giving you meals. Like, these aren't your clothes. You just like, you know, getting what you can here. And this is the spot that you're keeping them at.
But could you see how some people watching this right now would say, they might have had a different experience. Like, park police came through and started popping off. Absolutely.
I know for a fact that even if we're in the same place at the same time, we may have two different experiences with what's going on. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that every single thing that happened was the right way for it to happen. But what I am saying is, as a park board, we voted on a resolution to say 20 parks, up to 20 parks are designated spots for people to live in the parks, and that's where they can go. We'll identify the parks. So my job as a commissioner is to uphold that. You and I just had a very fun time talking about how we grew up in parks. You can't transform that narrative for a child who is used to going to Powderhorn every single day of their life, right? And then people say, well, it's criminalizing the homeless. It's not. I don't really think the people who live there are the problem. I think there's a lot of predators who are preying on them because they are in that situation. What I witnessed was people who know, people are living at Powderhorn and said, I'm coming over here to do this, this, and this because they over here.
Predating in what way?
Like selling weed, sex trafficking, whatever. It wasn't the people living there. It was this is an opportunity, for me to come over here and prey on the population that have nothing else, that have nowhere to go. Oh God, what's the park? Elliott was considered the, the clean. They had all been clean and drug-free, alcohol-free or whatever. When we went over there to move them, they were good because they we're all relapsing now. They're coming over here selling drugs. They bringing alcohol. Where they gonna go? They don't have nowhere to go. That's why this narrative around it being safe is not the case. If I'm a battered woman, the least safe for me to be is living in a park. Not only am I putting myself in danger, but I'm putting everybody else around me in danger. My crazy ex-boyfriend finds out I'm living in Powderhorn and comes to shoot up the whole park. Where is this safe at?
And you also said something earlier before we started filming. You said, how is living in a park a sanctuary?
Yeah, it's not, right? Our culture does not say living in the park is a sanctuary. It's no one grows up. I never grew up to son and said, I want to go to college and live in a park. I said, I want a house, right? I want to have a roof over my head. I want to come out and garden in the morning. You know what I mean? That is not safe to live in the park. If I slept out here every day because I had nowhere else to go, that's not safety. And this, I really feel this movement that a lot of people really need. I mean, housing is a problem in our city. We need to
clearly,
there's a lot of work that we need to do, and this has been at the top of my list of things to do, rather that's calling the mayor directly, working with city council members, working with the House, the Senate, it has just become that for me.
Do you believe the city council and mayor and your relationship with them, have they shown you any kind of merit that they are taking on this issue and that they're actually, addressing it and changing it?
Absolutely. If they weren't doing it, I would be saying they're not doing it.
Okay.
I would be saying, and they know that. They know me. They don't know me just from being a Parks Board commissioner. They know me from being an advocate in public health for Black people. So they know I will put them on blast if they were not. I've called the mayor directly, and he's committed. There's 3 shelters they're supposed to be opening up. There's, I've talked to county commissioners. I've talked, people are working, but I think, because we've been quarantined. Everybody's kind of at home, looking for the next big thing. It all just culminated into this. Do right now.
When I spoke to Don, who works for Hennepin County, he told me one of the big issues with the shelters is that they have open shelters, they have open rooms, they have open beds, but not a lot of folks of color trust them because they don't want to come in and abide by. Because it's this idea of entering into a scenario where now you got rules on you. You got to be out by 8 a.m.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to make that clear. When we're talking about a shelter, it's not hey, it's like a hostel. I get to kick it here.
No. But the flip side to that is, not everyone, but some people have had to have a party in the parks this summer, right? You don't have to go in the shelter. You can kind of hang out in the parks and do your own thing. So I get it. A shelter is not your main concern. That's not where you want to be. But it's Minnesota. At some point, if you're unhoused, you're going to have to go in one. And so right now, let me just be free from massa for a little while, right? I don't have to report in. I'm in the parks. You know what I'm saying? So I get the idea of wanting those few months of freedom from that if that's what you want to do, but you can't live outside here forever. That's the other reason why it's not a sanctuary. Where they go, LA, you got Tent City. I've been down there a million times. It's organized. People, there's a lot going on down there, but there's heavy police patrolling. There's, so many other factors that in Minneapolis, they're trying to say, like, don't do that,
And I think that's a thing maybe some folks in Minneapolis know about, but when you go down to LA, I mean, we may see encampments as like, oh goodness, this is here now. It's like, it's been out there forever.
For years. I remember the very first time my college roommate was from Palmdale, and we went to LA for, we thought we was shit, like, yeah, we're going to LA. And we went downtown, and I was like, what?
No, it's real.
What?
Oh, you see that new brewery that just popped up? Yep, there's a homeless encampment right next to it.
But it was
unhoused
like, I was used to Chicago or Minneapolis downtown buildings, know. Then here you got like a whole village. Not like, no, I'm talking blocks and blocks and blocks, and nobody was like angry about,
No, it's passive, it's chill.
Yeah, it's like just living, like people decorating couches, all kind, and I'm like, no.
So I want to touch on just real quick your relationship you said with the mayor and city council. So 2 years ago, Mayor Fry, the alert went up, the wall was there, and everybody was seeing it. And he said something to the effect of, I'm gonna find long-term housing, gonna get housing, affordable housing, affordable housing for these folks. Now 2 years later, unhoused community has grown. Lowry Hill East's neighborhood, where Lisa Bender presides over. There was a condo being built. You might have heard about it, called Pure Lowry. Yep. They were building, cracked the foundation of the apartment next to it. Affordable housing there. They had to vacate because the foundation was cracked. People that were building Pure Lowry then bought that apartment building, bulldozed that down.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Okay, so that.
I didn't know that.
So you're seeing affordable housing kind of get knocked down, and then they're probably going to build a new condo there. So with those optics or just that happening, like, do you understand how people can look in from the outside and say, well, this brother said he was going to like provide affordable housing. 2 years later, unhoused community is bigger than ever. Condos are popping up everywhere throughout Uptown. 1/3 of them are being occupied right next to where Mayor Fry lives. I mean, that's the tallest condo I've ever seen in Minneapolis. That one right across the street from him. I mean, if that doesn't say not affordable housing or profitable housing, I don't know what does. What do you want from a leader that is addressing affordable housing? Like let's take Fry out of it. What would a leader actually be doing right now to address affordable housing and really get after some long-term solutions for the unhoused community?
So, first of all, I don't think that affordable housing is just the issue for unhoused. There's a lot of people who currently live somewhere that can't afford where they live, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of single mothers, single parents, people of color who can't afford where they live. So I think affordable housing has to be suitable for our city, right? Like, it has to be comparable to what people are making. If we know that people are making low money, like, that's what affordable housing, right? Yeah. It has to be comparable to that. If your where you live should, I mean, your social class is determined on how much you make, right? So, like, if I'm only making $30,000, where can I live for my $30,000 in Minneapolis? Like, everybody has to have somewhere to live.
It's supposed to be 1/3 of what you make in a month, according to Don.
Which is like a made-up number, right?
Yeah,
like,
well, that's what Don told me. That's what the housing vouchers.
Right. That's a made-up number to me. Like, who came up with this? Some white man. I'm sure. I'm positive. Like, every law, I have to remember I'm being filmed. I curse so much.
It's okay.
Every law that we think about now, it's like some white man sat around the table and just said 1/3 of what you make. You know what I mean? Like, where the fuck did that number come from?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like, and why is it a rule? And why can't it be changed?
Yeah.
So
true.
But that's what I was getting to. Like, I want a leader who can look at those things and say, those don't really matter. What matters is that we have, because even if we said we're going to give everybody in this city somewhere to live, we don't have anywhere to put them. There's nowhere, like, there's not enough space here. We won't have the park system that we have. We won't have, you know what I mean?
Well, we got vacated buildings on Franklin. We got 2/3 of those condos not being used. I mean,
no. I mean, like, those places are good, but there's still a lot of people who cannot afford. We're not just talking about the people who are sleeping
unhoused,
in the parks or unhoused. We're talking about people who really cannot afford where they currently live, or and there's always going to be people that's still coming. So even when you address the situation around I mean, not anymore. Maybe people are like, not Minneapolis, but
well, I mean, when winter comes, it's like
6 months ago they were like, "Oh, I'm going to Minneapolis." Land of 100,000 opportunities. Now it's like, it's on fire over there.
Yeah,
I was staying.
Yeah, I mean, the look of the city has changed, and I mean, like you used to have these signs, all are welcome here, and now the narrative has changed because I think a lot of the white fragility and guilt has gotten exposed in light of the riots.
I lived in Longfellow for 14 years.
For real?
Yeah, I lived a block from Minnehaha Academy High School. 14,
okay.
I just moved here 2.5 years ago.
Okay.
I lived over there for 14 years. And every single person in that neighborhood had a Black Lives Matter, except me. Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
All are welcome here signs. But like, I probably never had a conversation with them. So it's just a sign. You know what I'm saying?
It is.
It's just like a...
Yeah.
It's kind of how I feel about this movement around the unhoused. Like, this is really, to me, what I've seen. I'm not saying we don't have a problem. We definitely need to address it. As you said, I want a leader. You asked me the question, what do I want to see in a leader? I want to see a leader that looks at every single situation. Disparities at the top of the list. How do we house these people? How do we create sustainable housing for them? How do we help these people become homeowners? Not just renters. Because we know that, like, okay, my mom had a decent job. She was a mechanic for Toro. She made good money for the times. If she could have, like, owned a home, our lives would have been a lot different than her just, like, renting. Having, so, like, what kind of housing opportunities are we creating?
Yeah.
And not, like, the same cycle of, white people buying all the houses up in the city, folks worried about gentrification. So I want a leader who looks at, like, housing overall. Like, how are you thinking about the underserved first when it comes to housing? Not about how are you going to maintain the same level of taxes, because that's a big thing, right? Like, we need tax dollars for the city to run. Yeah. So you want the Southwest people over there because they pay $40,000 taxes. Yeah. Where over here, you're not paying that. So we need them. They're good for right now. How can we help the other people? You know, like, how do we get the single moms, the low income people in sustainable housing where they're not transient? Even if, like, you're renting, you can afford it, but you like it, you feel safe. It's not just I'm just living here. Because guess what happens? As soon as some gunshots go off or some robberies or something, you're moving. Your kids changing schools. As soon as somebody, like, can't work for 2 weeks and you can't pay the rent, you moving. You gotta go somewhere else. So I want a leader that's looking at everything. Housing is not just a roof over your head.
Yeah.
Housing is huge.
It's community.
It's huge. It's way bigger than us going to put people from a park into a building.
Yeah.
That's not it. That's not it. Because, okay, we're going to go clear out Powderhorn, move them where you say the building is, on Franklin?
The building on 2003 Aldrich.
Okay, so we move everybody out of Powderhorn to 2003 Aldrich, right?
Yeah.
They don't have jobs. They're not getting the mental health care that they need. They're not getting the substance abuse treatment that they need. They're not getting the food they need. 2003 Aldrich gonna be empty in no time.
So you're talking about a leader that addresses it from top to bottom, not just having a roof over their head.
It's never just a roof. The easy part is a roof over your head. The hard part is all those other psychosocial issues that come along with having a roof over your head.
Yeah.
People don't understand that a lot of people have disdain for government altogether. So you can give me the roof. Do I want to tell you my real name? do I want to tell you, like, how I get my check? You know what I'm saying? Like, other things.
Yeah, I remember. There was. I work at a brewery, and there was a brother that came in, and he was leaving. And I was like, oh man, you going to work, man? Have a good one. He's like, I'm not going to work. I was like, oh, where are you going? He's like, can't tell you that, brother.
What's your problem? Why you asking me my business?
I was like, man, I'm just trying to. My bad, man.
When I first started working over here, I used to be like an outreach coordinator. I work at Northway, it's a community clinic and human service center. So, I would be out in the lobby thinking I'm just, look at me, connected to community. And I'd be like, you got to give me, because, like, people want the trinkets from the table or whatever. Yeah. And I'd be like, I just need you to sign that clipboard so I can show that we talk.
Yeah.
They'd be like, you not gonna get this to child support, are you?
Whoa. Yeah, see, but
you gotta know that's who you're working with.
Now, so to get to kind of what your questions for me, it sounds like we're in agreement that trust is like kind of like not there.
Absolutely.
It's not there.
Absolutely.
Even I was downtown two weeks ago when it popped off on Nicollet and 8th.
After the video came out?
I was there before the video came out.
Okay.
And it was, but the idea wasn't like, what's this opportunity to break some windows? It was not. It was like, no, it's George Floyd, it's Terrence Franklin, it's Jacob Blake, it's everything leading up to that point.
Absolutely.
And the cops being there just
agitated.
It elevated everything. And I was like, nobody trusts these people. Nobody trusts these cops right now. Like, and that's when I was like, I think we should go.
And it's really not, it's not even just about trust to me. It's like a lot of people have nothing to lose, right? Like, you're not vested in the community, like the homeowner, like the person who's grew up in this neighborhood for 50 years, that actually has a stake in it. So it's like, tear that shit up,
Well, also, but then you got other companies there that Target or Best Buy or whatever, they're invested in the community monetarily. They could care less if a brother gets shot outside of it, right?
But as long
as they're making a dollar. Yeah, no, it's not invested. Yeah, exactly.
That's just some surface stuff. Let's just pay them some money, some hush money to keep quiet. I just mean overall, like even when we think, because it's not just about police brutality. It's just about the trauma in the black community for one, right? So like when we think of things, here, my house, it's quiet. It seemed like just like Mayberry, right?
Yeah.
But my husband's car has been broken into twice in the alley. Somebody just walked up, opened the door, and he's like, I had to calm him down because he wants like this crazy vigilante justice. I'm like, bro, chill. Like, you can't do nothing. Like, it's gone. It's whatever. You the one who left your stuff in the car.
Yeah, you're not Liam Neeson.
He's like getting angry. Most of our neighbors are white. And he's like, they saw him. And I was like, we're in a different time right now. Like, nobody wants to be called a Karen, honey.
No.
They're not going to, like, walk up on him and be like, what are you doing? Because, we're in a different time right now. And I really do think, like, the time we're in right now of unrest, of people really realizing, like, it could be me. Like, I think that's a lot of the trauma we're seeing right now is people really realizing, like, I could have been George Floyd. You know what I'm saying? I could have been Ahmaud Arbery. Like, anybody. Like, I think, and so a lot of the pain is coming out in, it's sad, but it's coming out in living in the parks. Like, just the freedom of not having to answer to anybody. Or, just I'm free. I don't have like these constrictions on me. I can just kind of be transient, and if I want to be in Powderhorn, I can be. If I want to be in Peavy, I can be. It's just my thing, I'm just out here right now.
Well, I want to get to quickly the reason. You reached out to me. I think it was a few days ago, and what I was so encouraged by, you said, "Hey, these things happen at Al Bangora's house. What's going on?" For people that are watching, I organized with some other leaders a march for no more evictions. That went from Bryant Square. No more evictions. Went from Bryant Square Park to Farmstead Park, and then back to Bryant Square Park. And I'm pretty sure I can clear up the questions that you have. But the idea was to march to Al's house, knowing that he had unilateral power to end evictions, that he could make that call. Educate me on what that means or where I got that wrong, if at all. Because as we said earlier, if Al wanted to make a call, and he'd have to wait till the meeting, call an emergency meeting, or just do it himself.
Right.
But that was the idea, and it wasn't to like get him out of his house and be like, "Hey, Al, make the call right now." It's emblematic. People go to a certain spot, and they had a demonstration, to make a point. What were some of the questions you had for me about that I can hopefully clear up and answer?
So I'll just tell you though, like when I text you, it was completely out of anger, because Al is the first black man superintendent of the Minneapolis Park Board, and his family is the first black family to ever live in that house. And it was a huge deal for the black community when he came back for him to live in that house. It was this big thing about, there used to be this group of white women that loved Theo Worth, who used to have like museum tours and stuff in there. And so for like a year, I really like fought for Al to have access to that house, right? And so like he's sending me video on Saturday. Him and his family are like freaking out, scared, like somebody spray painted his video camera, so he's like freaking out, and I'm like, he's black and he took them to your house, to do this, so that was my initial thing. Like, I was like really upset that, how many white men have lived in there? Homelessness has always been an issue, but of course they do it to the brother. Of course, it's easier to march on the black man's house. That's how I felt. I'm just telling you the truth. That's how I felt about the situation, and I wasn't comfortable publicly speaking out about it at that time, because that's really Al's story to tell. And his family. But I've talked to him, and he was sending me videos. He was sending me stuff that was happening at the house at that time. And I saw you. And I was like, oh no. I saw a sea of white people, and then I saw you. And I was like, this little troublemaker. Oh no, Al. No. But that was kind of where that, I was going to text you on the weekend, but I was too hot under the collar on the weekend.
Totally understood.
So I was like, calm down. And just, ask to speak. So I wanted to know, because what I have found in a lot of these situations, when I talk to the people of color, they usually have a different understanding of you were an organizer, so it's different. But a lot of times when I've talked to people of color at the scene of a cleanup or something, they don't even really understand what they're there for. They just got a tweet about a protest happening, and then they are under the belief that park board police are just coming in with guns and just clearing people up. You know what I mean? That has been my experience. So I wanted to know what your connection to this was. What do you all, because I'm never gonna say that living in a park is safe housing, or it's nothing. People are saying don't I can't even think of the word they use, but don't try to move them out of a park and take away their dignity. No, the dignity is taken when you trying to make them think living in a park is okay. Because it's not. And guess what? All those people look like you and I. Mm-hmm. So people get mad when I say, because it's usually white people on the opposite side of the tape, hey, you want to talk about what your ancestors did and why everybody living over here looks like me? Because that's the real conversation we need to have. Mm-hmm. Or, hey, they would be much more safer in your white backyard in a tent.
Exactly.
Right?
Give up the backyard and the front yard. Give up one of them,
When they show up and say, this is stolen land, well, guess what? My ancestors cultivated it and I get to keep mine, you give up yours.
And that's the conversation. That's the conversation.
That's the only conversation.
Okay,
That's the only conversation.
And a black person at the forum said that. They're like, give the land back. Give it back.
But how?
How are we going to distribute it? Understood. That's the further conversation that we couldn't get into.
To me, it's just something that people throw out there as like a shock factor. Let's not talk about every single person. When I was at those cleanups, when I would say, I'm not an expert on housing, I want to learn. People was yelling in my face, oh, you're I don't know, they would call black bitches, all kind of stuff. People were calling me out there.
They call you black bitch?
Oh, I'm telling you.
Whoa.
Let me tell you something. The way that they degraded the black park police officer was it had nothing to do with unhoused. You could tell all those people out there protesting hated police. It was about hate for police. It had nothing to do with the people that they claimed that they were out there to help. What happens is you send out a tweet and you don't know who's going to show up.
Yeah.
I will tell you this. Minnesota white people, when a black person talking, oh no, they get quiet. Oh, I'm so sorry. But when somebody's not. I filed a formal complaint against a guy who calling me black bitches, pulling off police cameras and powder horn, spitting, all kind of madness going on. He was from Portland. They called me to tell me he got arrested. He was from Portland. He was walking around with a park board uniform on. I can show you a picture. He was walking around with a park board uniform on. When we would serve notice, he would tell people, you can stay. You don't need to leave. And they believed him because he had somehow obtained a park board uniform. So this is the type of stuff that's going on. And what I'm saying to you is, I like to talk to the person of color because there's some predatory stuff. These people are doing this on more backs of black and brown people.
And that person was white.
He was white, a white man, a young white man. That's who I mostly saw. when they started saying drop the charges, I'm like, hold on. So my ancestors get to get locked up for 200 years, and now we just gonna free the white people? Oh no. Yeah. There was like 16 white people arrested. I felt some kind of, come on, MLK, you see what we did? You know what I mean, though? Like, why we gonna free
I understand. No, and it's not minding the space or minding what they mean in the space.
Yeah.
And I do agree with you that there have been a lot of white folks that have shown up to the movement, but have not minded what their white bodies mean to the space and the violence that they cause by occupying it.
Absolutely.
And that's in all facets of the movement.
And us as people of color, when we lead movements, what I love and respect about Nakima and Raisha, they always check with who's in the space with them.
That's the lead default. That's the lead that I followed from the beginning, my beginning, which could have started a whole lot earlier, but like I had never seen somebody call somebody out during a rally, cut in the middle of a speech, and call out a white person in the audience.
Like Nakima just like that.
Yeah, it is.
But because she knows, as the black woman, she's the visionary. She's the face of the space. She tells them, quick, hey, white people, go to the back.
So
don't talk.
I'll segue into this as an entry point to get back to what we were originally talking about. Justice for Jacob Blake. We were making the march. We went from one place to another to the first precinct. We got to the first precinct. This is led by Nakima, Racial Justice Network. And once we got to the first precinct, while we were marching, there were some people tipping over detour signs, and I was kind of like, oh, okay, never seen that before. But I was also like, why do that now? Why that now? We get to the first precinct, some folks started tagging the first precinct, and I'm like, they did it before I could see it. And so I seen Nakima just talking to some folks and just reaming them out for spray painting the building. And the message was, we didn't come here for that. Do that on your own time in your own space. That is going to be reflective upon the group that's here. And so what I got from that, in following that lead or taking that message, what my connection that I've made with my people that are unhoused or working in it, and we created this channel called Home Base Central that is just basically for needs lists. You got a list of needs, we'll post it, get it out there. You want to do a one-day supply bank, we'll post it, get it out there. You need people at the encampment to get them moved or defend or something like that. You want to get people moved real quick because the folks are showing up. We'll post it out there. We need people to get tents up and help them move. And so that was the work that I was doing. And then the eviction started. And I was like, okay, let's do a rally for no more evictions and have a forum about it. My background in forum is that I've been working in intervention-based forum for the past 17 years. So work with a theater group that pulls up on a freshman orientation of 300 to 400 kids. We have a forum about sexual assault, substance abuse, sexism, racism, or transphobia, or all five, depending on what we get hired for. And so in forum, it brings out a lot of raw emotions and people talking about things for the first time that they haven't talked about. And what's really happening is people are learning who their community is. And I thought, what better place to have a forum than outside of Al's house? And so having that, saying, okay, let's go to Bryant Square, go to Al's house, hold a forum. If Al wants to show up, God bless. If not, don't blame him. We've done the same thing at Lisa Bender's house. We've done it at Levin Park, which that one got interesting at the end. It's interesting. Side note, Levin Park, there was a lot of people that pulled up, and at the end, and they were like, it was a Black Lives Matter solidarity march, just to start at Levin, do a lap, get back to Levin. Let's have a talk about race in your neighborhood. Do black people feel welcome at Levin Park? And afterwards, there were a few white folks that pulled up and said, you know what, we were really angry when we heard this was coming here, but you did a great job, and you're welcome anytime. And I was like, well, I didn't ask to be welcome, but okay.
I come when I feel like it.
It's a park. I'll pull up at the park if I want to. Yeah. So that was the sentiment, and I was just like, all are welcome here when they ask you.
Right.
And so when we pulled up to the park, the same activity that happened at the first precinct, without, I turned my back for probably like a minute and a half.
At Al's house.
Yeah. Getting set up, and then it happened, and I saw it happening, and I got on the mic right away and said, "Could you please not do that? Please stop that."
I heard you say we're not here for that type of activity.
So, and then some people picked up the mic and got verbal. And then this is what forum is. Anybody can talk, and then usually the forum kind of checks that person if they don't really feel what they're saying. And that person expressed, hey, don't judge how I express myself. And I said, I'm not judging how you express yourself. I'm asking you to mind the space and then mind the time. You can do that whenever you want to. Al's house ain't going nowhere. Capitalism ain't going nowhere. You could do whatever you want, but have it be at your own risk. There are people in this audience that are not all arrestable. What we consented to was what we put in the description and the demands. We said we're gonna have a peaceful protest. We're gonna march and have a forum. That's that. If you want to have like rocket launchers and
spray painted.
Yeah, then put that in your list of demands in your description. Like organize that on your own time. I won't show up to it, but do your thing on your time. And so that happened, and then that person got upset, took to the mic, and then and it was people that may or may not be affiliated with it, but took to the mic and said we should really be taking it straight to the source and burning it down. And the audience didn't respond in a favorable way, and so it was what it was. And I took the mic back and I said, okay, let's talk about long-term solutions for unhoused communities.
And like, Al is not the person to have that conversation with.
Why not?
He's a park board superintendent.
Understood, but that's
what
not...
What he gonna do?
Understood, but that's... the idea where the conversation can start is at the encampments. That's the idea. That's the idea.
But the conversation, but Al still has nothing, like, Al has no connection to housing whatsoever.
Understood.
None.
But understood. The idea is, what can you do to just maybe push this eviction date back a little bit on October 1st?
But why would we be, like, a long-term solution to housing is not housing people in parks.
It is not. You're correct.
It is not. So why would Al keep, like, putting himself in something that he can never, like, fix? You know?
And that's where the conversation started. It said, okay, first things first, evictions. Can we push the date back a little bit? Second thing, what's the long-term solution? Or second thing was like, what's like a medium solution for like winter? Then the next one was, okay, what's a long-term solution? So we're starting at the root. We're starting at the starting line, which is evictions. Can we push this back a little bit? And knowing that Al has unilateral power to address eviction dates, that's where the conversation started for us.
Well, I will tell you, Al does have the power to do things, but Al is not the kind of leader who would make that type of big decision without, like, the board's input, for one. Like, he has the power to make decisions, but I think something that big, he would want to bring it to the board for a decision, right? Like, that's a very political solution. You know what I mean? Like, that's not like, yeah, it's my yard, come on, live out here. You know what I mean? Like, that affects an entire city, right? So, like, I don't think the kind of leader that Al is, that he would make that kind of unilateral decision. You are right in that he has that power, but that is not what it was intended for. It wasn't intended for him to, like, not have conversations with the board, with other decision makers or community. Al's decisions are based off of the work he's doing with the mayor, with the city council, the governor. Like, Al's working with people about housing when that's not in his job description. Like, that's not what he came here for. He came here to run a park system. And this year has been about COVID, and it has been about housing. Like, and this last meeting we
had... Police brutality.
Right. But not park police.
Well, I mean, I think other people watching are definitely going to disagree with that, but I don't think you can say park police are totally not complicit in this, right?
Oh, no. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying, like, last year we had an incident where the park police and the young kids at Minneapolis, you remember that? Like, the 3 or 4 young Somali kids, the park police officer put a gun out on them at Minneapolis. That was I didn't hear about that. Yeah, it was a big thing. And we settled. We paid those families. That made the news. There was a video that was out there about that. So, like, we're not saying that the park police don't, like, police. They're police, right? Yeah. But the issue that look at that hummingbird. I get such gorgeous birds. You see it? It's on the tree branch that's hanging over. I get distracted too because I see it. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I get a lot of them around the farm. I get totally distracted. I get everything over here. Finches, blue jays, cardinals.
I can see them. You got the apparatus for it.
Yes. So Al, again, when I saw that you were having a rally over there, I was just, for me, I was like, well, what is Al gonna do? Like, why are they going to Al's house? Like, I get why y'all go to Jacob Fry's house, or Lisa Bender's house. I don't understand why it would go to Al's house. And I mean, you know this. You can't control who shows up at your march. And so for me, like, the fact that here this black family is probably gonna have more trauma because Al chose a job, that's not fair. That's not fair.
Yeah.
Like, what happened over there scared him and his family. It's not, I mean, it would scare me. It would scare me. You know what I mean? If somebody spray painted my camera on my house, I would be laying under the bed calling somebody.
Do you think it would, I mean, some people watching would say, do you think that's relative to what the trauma that people are experiencing in the encampments from the park police?
Where? What does that have to do with Al?
No, I'm saying, so Al feels this trauma. Some people may feel that, hey, just pulling up to his lawn and having a forum, that's not like,
what happened.
uprooting his house.
That's not pulling up to the lawn. People vandalizing. He has a teenage son that lives in there. Like, it's not just, there's a such thing as peaceful protest. They were, when it first happened, they said they were coming to move in over here.
Okay.
You know, they were like, we're going to move in on her park. You know? And I was like, well, do what you got to do.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But, like, I don't have children. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't, my husband's not scary. He's from Inglewood in Chicago. Like, that don't scare him, you know? Like, he walks out there with me. Al has a family that didn't sign up for that. And they don't know. They don't necessarily know what's happening in encampments or whatever.
So what would you prefer how the community would address Al to push back the eviction date then?
If someone wants to protest or like, well, first of all, I'm not encouraging anybody to get Al to push back the date because I think it's unnecessary for Al to push back the date. The board voted on the resolution currently like no other resolution in the history of the parks. For the dates, for the longer, I don't think that you all understand like how much longer you're postponing what really needs to be happening. I know it seems like people are visible living in the park. You can see this in your front yard. But you cannot account for those people. We don't know what resources and what people need if they're living in the park. If they're at a shelter or if we can account for them. You all are not helping them. You're harming them by keeping them unaccountable in a park. I don't know who's out there. I don't know if they need housing. I don't know if they need medication. I don't know anything. Because they're in a park and nobody's got a roster. Nobody has anything. So like for me, the longer we let them stay outside, the longer it's gonna take us to really know like what we need to be doing exactly. To address it in our, we can go around and count tents and say, okay, there's 50 tents at Powderhorn, so we need, but that's not really what's happening at Powderhorn. There's not really 50 people there. That sometimes there's a lot more tents than it is people. Absolutely. At Powderhorn, I met plenty of people who said, I just come here for the summer and I'm going back to Hawaii. I get a one-way ticket from Hawaii to Minnesota because I get to use up a lot of the resources that the homeless people in Minneapolis get, and then I'll get Mary Jo to give me a one-way ticket back home when it gets cold outside.
I did not know that.
Oh, well, see, I just told you.
You did.
I met a woman and her boyfriend
I haven't met anybody
and her
like that
medic dog that was living at Powderhorn.
Wow.
And I said, y'all so brown. They were just, I mean, you could tell they had just come out of, I've been on many tropical vacations, so I saw like, that wasn't no Minnesota glow. No.
I was
like, where y'all from? She said, oh, we just got here from Hawaii.
So I'll say this in response to what you had indicated with the protest. One, in doing forum and protest is to hold leaders accountable and to address certain messages and demands. And because, I mean, even if COVID wasn't happening, it's still tough to get a word in with Bender. It's still tough to get a word in with Fry. It's still tough to get a word in with a lot of these leaders that haven't been present for the community and have shown up to sing Kumbaya and whatnot in Powderhorn Park. So we're going to defund the police and then turn around, and now they got a big decision to make tomorrow with $4.8 million if a new temporary third precinct is going to pop up in Seward. And people are going to push back at that. So knowing the history of protest, showing up on somebody's lawn and having a forum, that, for me, that just ain't wild. I agree with you. But what happened is unprecedented in my experience. So had that happened like several times before, I'd be like, all right, LaTrisha, I know, I get it. I should have seen that one coming. within like me turning my back to the sound truck and like looking for the mic, coming back, I was like, oh, ACAB is on the house and the sign and I mean, it was fast. And so it's not to take the...
But as an organizer to sign, you have to be aware of the times that we are in. And what I've seen this entire summer is a lot of white angry folks using our pain, using our suffering as a way for them to express their more madness. Like they show that was my biggest argument with like this whole sanctuary. I still can't tell you who's behind the sanctuary movement. These people have collected hundreds of thousands of dollars, and all you do is keep getting the buck passed. You know how I found out there was even a movement? There was 2 black women living in the park that was like, girl, I'm about to start me a GoFundMe. And I was like, what? She was like, they got $300,000. I can get 10. I was like, why don't I give you 10 of that 300?
Yeah.
And they were like, we don't know. So like even that's all weird to me. That feels like what white person is behind this collecting money off the backs of the black, unless I see who it is. Guess what I'm assuming? It's a white person.
Okay.
That's behind the scenes collecting the money, because that's the history of this country, right? So like what I'm saying, this year, lots of white people are seeing opportunities where you can't really organize in Minneapolis without white allies. You really can't. Like they show up in large numbers, and you want that. But what's happening is other people are coming in and agitating situations,
hijacking
on their own issues. Like all those white men out at Powderhorn that was like Antifa and anti-police. I still, my theory is that they like trust fund babies who are mad that their parents didn't tell them Black Lives Matter. So this is their way of like getting back, because most of them come from Southwest or somewhere else. I don't know what they so angry for. Like I'm the one. I feel like I should be out there.
If anybody has the right to be angry,
it should be me. Like, why all these bros out here angry like this? Like, what happened to them? Because the world we live in, they have all the privilege over women, over people. So, like, why all I saw was a bunch of... Now, I can tell the difference between, like, the activists, the women, the white savior women who really, like, feel like they're making a difference by mobilizing around this issue from the angry people who are just there to say they did something.
No, it's true.
And that's happening.
And the marches have decreased in size, since May, since June. And you see who's kind of making their life's work of this and who is making a moment of it. And all that being said, the one commitment I can make to you is that going forward, I go back to what one of the local communities said, and we'll wrap up here on this. The community leaders, local community leaders in Minneapolis told me, embrace the uncertainty. And that statement scared the crap out of me. And I was like, what do you mean? There's no schedule for all the marches? And so the way that I look at it is that in organizing and becoming, I guess, somewhat of a leader in some of these marches is that the only thing I can do within my control is bring people together to rally under a common cause, and then address the BS that happens outside of that, and say not everybody here is arrestable. Some people, if they get arrested, they're going back to the country they came here from, and they don't get invited back under this administration or the next one. And to operate within the confines of, hey, somebody might spray paint something. For me, that was one that was unprecedented, but two, there's always going to be. It's as they say in George Floyd Square, the 4 assumptions. One of them is assume that not everybody here is for your liberation, and I would assume that that's at any table that I've ever sat at, even my family tables, and so just putting it out there that at each march and rally, my commitment is to make sure that everybody is understood that they will be checked if they step out of line, in the only way that we know. And that we're all here for a common cause, and that's for the demands and the lane that we agreed to being here for, and the march that we came here to rally for.
I just don't believe that's all. I do the same thing.
I understand.
I organize around my tobacco issues all the time. I turn out City Hall. I've been, like, policies I've worked on, they call it t-shirt wars, because like the store owners are working against me. Like the biggest policy I had in menthol was in Minneapolis was banning the sale of menthol, right? So of course, like store owners are like, she's gonna shut our business down, blah blah blah. But the only people I bring to the table to go with me to City Hall are the people that I know for a fact are interested in it. Not the people, because it's too much of a risk. You're talking about like race here. You're talking about like putting somebody at risk. Like, you did a great job at organizing whatever, but you don't know what happens when you introduce somebody to Al's house. You know, like, there's people that don't even know Al lives at that park. Now there's a lot of people who do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you have no control over what that person who was introduced to Al's house and Al's family does after you have, even if you had a peaceful protest. That's the whole thing. It's not about being discreet. People can find you whatever, but a lot of this stuff around the sanctuary movement has made the parks like more, people are more aware of like the actual system, and that Al is a superintendent, lives in the house, and there's a park board. Like, a lot of people didn't even know there's a 9% elected board.
Yeah. I mean,
did you know?
My brother-in-law worked for the park board. You know, one summer he's a teacher.
But no, like the board of commissioners, not the actual organization. Like, a lot of people don't know that there's elected boards of commissioners.
Okay. Well, I mean, maybe I was, special in knowing that growing up. However,
yeah, you were.
Not maybe, for sure.
Yeah, you were.
But that's as far as my commitment can go in organizing going down the line. I don't doubt that it's gonna evolve. I mean, things have changed at like a light speed pace from like June to now. Like, if you would have told me it was gonna be like this now in June, I'd been like, no way. I would have thought everybody would have lost steam and went home by now and taken a nap.
Well, it's gonna get cold.
It's gonna get cold, but I think I'll still be out there. So
I believe that.
And that being said, I wrap up on this with this final question. So you said you know what you want a leader to look like, addressing things from top to bottom. Have you ever had the passing thought to possibly run for something in higher leadership in this city than where you're at right now?
I think about it all the time. I think.
Would you ever run for mayor?
I would not say no, but what I will tell you is that just like who ran for park board affected me in the way that it did, and I had a broken ankle. I was in a wheelchair and went and filed. My 10-week campaign, I had a cast on that said Black Lives Matter. I had an artist paint it for me.
Okay.
But like that, the fact that who was going to lead the parks was the deciding factor for me to run. It's that way for me with anything. City council, mayor, county commissioner, whatever. Because like, I think who leads us matters. And if a person is not showing leadership abilities, then they have to go. And we all define leadership very differently. And I'm a vocal Black woman who's in touch with like what kind of leadership we need in this city. And if it works for me on the park level now, boom. But next week, if it's like, girl, you got to do something else. Like, we need true leadership. Of course, I never closed the door to it. Well, the election year is next year, so just put that out there. Not that you didn't know. I don't need you coming over to my house if I'm the mayor. Y'all gonna be mad. I'm gonna let my dogs out. I would make the commitment to not pull up on your house. No, I mean, but I couldn't say the same for other folks. I'm not afraid of that. They were threatening to come over. I was like, come on. It's a park. Well, then maybe we need a leader that's saying it's okay to come on over. As long as you don't go and mess. You see this? This is my masterpiece right here. This is my therapy. This is how I get rid of the trauma in my life. Every day I come out here, I garden, I pick flowers. This is like, you see that sunflower? It's one of the tallest sunflowers I've ever seen in my life. One of them I named after my husband. It was 17 feet tall, big Ron. It broke in that storm you were talking about. Oh, no. You can ride by. People just, I'm surprised. They see me talking. People just turn around, come over here, start talking, asking me questions. I'm totally fine with it. Yeah. My husband's like, okay, wrap it up. Yeah. It's time. I'm like, hey, park board meetings, you get 2 minutes to speak at the most, right? At 5:30 is open time. As a person of color, if I saw another person of color and I had an opportunity to come to their yard, I'm gonna talk to them in the yard. Yeah. Before I find a babysitter, all this stuff I gotta do to go to a park board meeting. So I welcome any opportunity for anybody to say anything they need to say to me whenever. You see how late I was texting you last night? Yeah. I was like, what is that? I forgot about that. Because people like will text me and say, I can't talk to you until after my kid goes to sleep. I only get paid $12,000 a year to be a park commissioner. But it means everything to me. To like people, so people can say, I want this to happen. I want to have a voice in this. I want to have, like, it means everything that I get to be a citywide elected official to make a decision.
Yeah.
You know, I want to make sure that everybody says what it is they need, you know, in my decision-making abilities. I don't want it to be about me. So sometimes you have to talk at 12 o'clock in the morning, or sometimes you gotta, you know, stop on your walk with the dogs in the morning. It just happens.
Yeah. The other thing I'll say is that whatever amount of time that we had to discuss, we clearly did not have enough amount of time to address everything. But I hope this is not the last conversation that we have. So thank you so much.
I'm glad we met. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.